Hello, my crafty friend, and welcome to the Witching Hour, my big book of fall-time glamour with a slight Halloween theme. Lots of leaves, lots of vintage jewelry, lots of texture, and lots of beautiful, magical feeling colors. So get yourself some coffee or some tea or some witch's brew because it's going to be one of my typical chatty flip through videos, and this book is stuffed full, so I have a lot to share with you today. I'll start with what's on the cover, the danglies, the little extra bits. So I made a tassel using all different types of laces and ribbons and things in fall time Halloweeny sort of colors. And I also made a really luxurious little boho bead. So this is made out of some recycled sari trim, but I've added to it real gemstone beads. So the little red one is garnet and the little orange ones are carnelian. And then the black beads on either end of the assortment are black obsidian, which is a gem used for psychic protection. So imagine like putting a little force field of protection around yourself. And I feel like when we're talking about magical things and Halloween, All Hallows Eve, when that veil between worlds is at its thinnest, it's nice to have a little bit of protection so that only those who intend good can reach you. No meddling spirits when we have black obsidian around. And then these pretty orange beads are amber. Amber is such a beautiful gemstone. Look at how, like, I'm just sitting in the shade, but on a sunny, it's sunny outside, but I'm not in direct sunlight. And even still, the amber is kind of glowing from within. It just picks up the sunlight. It's such a warm stone, and it reminds me, of course, of the colors of fall. And then hanging from this boho bead, I've put some kind of darkened metal baubles and a triple moon with a pentacle. So the moon on the left represents the waxing moon, the moon that's building up to full. And in the time of waxing moon, it's believed that we can start new projects, write down new ideas, embark on new adventures, and they're building up towards the crescendo of the full moon, which is a time to take stock of what we've done and enjoy the bounty of our harvest. So this is like the planting season, the harvesting season. And then the waning moon on the right represents a time of relaxation and rejuvenation. So imagine nestling in next to a crackling fire on a winter's evening and waiting for the spring when it's time to take action again. The moon phases, as per, the belief in the craft. I don't even like to say witchcraft because that has a negative connotation to it. But the phases of the moon represent the times when we can do different works. And what's really interesting is that I completed work on this book right around full moon time. So that kind of means it's followed the moon cycles just kind of naturally. And now we are in a time of waning moon. So it feels like it's a good time to share it with the world because the work is completed. Anyhow, I've attached those to the cover of the book using a vintage goldstone clip that I found while I was out thrifting. I don't know what this clip would have been originally used for. I don't think it would be a hair barrette because you'd get a little tangled in it. But I thought this was so pretty, prettier than any paper clip I've seen, and just right to anchor this to the book. So the boho bead, you can take it off because it's attached with a split jump ring. You can just bend that with some pliers and use this wherever you'd like to use it. And then the tassel is on a paper clip, so you could clip that anywhere you'd want, inside the book or in a different book, as you'd like to use it. And then this book is really full of upcycled vintage jewelry. I couldn't resist getting really textured with it. It felt like the fall theme needed a bit of luxury. So I found this gorgeous clip-on earring. While thrifting again, most of the vintage jewelry that I use is found thrifting. But look at the textures in this. Like, there's gilding on some of the plastic beads, but it looks like it's been overheated and bubbling, which reminds me of making a witch's brew or something. It's just so cool. And there was only one like it. It wasn't part of a pair, so somebody must have lost the other earring, but it makes it perfect to clip onto the wraparound closure here. So yeah, the wraparound closure is just this beautiful black and gold twine. And I've put some beads and a button to decorate this. The button has kind of a medieval looking coat of arms, and that reminded me of a haunted castle, which is why I'm using this book about old castles as the backdrop for today's video. I bought it thinking I could take it apart and use the pages in a junk journal, but it's just such a beautiful book that I couldn't bring myself to ripping any of the pages out, so I'll settle for using it as a filming backdrop. Anyhow, that closure is attached to a little grommet that I put in the side of the book cover. So this is what the book cover looks like unadorned. This removable tag was just kind of sitting there to decorate it, but you could keep that inside the book too. It has tons of little things dripping out the bottom. I'll get to these beads and these danglies later, but I kind of wanted to show you how full it looks from the bottom. And I've got leaves sticking out the top and just a couple fun beads hanging out the side. So the reason the side edges of the paper are left a little bit more plain is that I was very ambitious with my idea of being able to restrain myself. This was supposed to be a wraparound cover. And you can see that I overfilled this book, as I often do, so it no longer wraps around. But if you took out all the removable things in this book, you would be able to kind of cover the edges of the paper with this bit of fabric. So yeah, this gorgeous printed fabric with the black patterning on the orangey gold background, this inspired the entire book. I found this fabric at a thrift shop in a small town called Pincher Creek. And as soon as I saw the fabric, I just knew I have to make a Halloween themed journal because it's too perfect not to be a Halloween themed journal. So it's just sewn onto some orange cardstock. And it's a single signature book, but a very thick, squishy, fun, overstuffed single signature book. So before we go inside, the tag that was on the cover has a pocket featuring this stunning Waterhouse painting. I've used prints of this painting in a lot of my journals because I just love this mystical woman gazing into her crystal ball. She has a book that could maybe be a spell book, a skull which represents the cycle of mortality, and it's fun to think about what she might be contemplating here. And I've collaged this onto some beautiful floral scrapbook paper. It's made into a tag with Halloween colored ribbon. And then I've collaged lots of different layers of texture. So some ruched ribbon, some old music paper that I coffee dyed to make it look even older, and some layers of fabric, and then of course these fabric leaves. And then the top, I stuck another thrifted single earring. So if you're into jewelry making and you haven't done this already, I highly recommend going to a thrift shop and finding the cheapest of the cheap jewelry. The thrift store closest to me sells $10 jars of like single earrings and reject rings. These rings were all in a $10 jar. This one and these two, not the moonstone. That's a fancier one. But yeah, finding the cheapest thrift shop jewelry, just picking it up in bulk, you will definitely find the right projects for it. So this cool earring, which you can easily take off the tag if you'd like to use those beads or use it elsewhere. And then this Waterhouse painting, I actually made it into a pocket and stuffed it with more leaves. So you could put papers, you could tuck a little mini notebook into there, you could put whatever you want into it. I just thought maybe whoever gets this book might have some fun doing some crafting and using some of the extra leaves. So inside is where it gets really fun. This was actually a printable made by Priscilla at Release the Craftin'. And again, it's the triple moon, the waxing, the full, and the waning. And when it comes to divine femininity, these also represent the maiden, the mother, and the crone. So the 3 phases of a woman's life. And of course here you could put some collaged paper, you could write in gold pen, you could do some journaling here as well. And like I said, you could tuck this into the book or you could keep it as a separate piece. I like to include lots of different stuff to use in my journals. And here we go, 11 minutes in, and I'm finally opening the book. So the first page, I wanted it to be a wow factor. So again, lots of fabric textile collaging with broken jewelry pieces to add more fun. The inside cover has a pocket made with this beautiful embroidered velvet sari trim, more leaves, and another broken earring. And then inside the pocket, I put a pouch with even more of these fall leaves. The book is lined with this handmade paper from India. Orange, of course. And then here's a fun little extra gift that I think adds a little magic to the book. Oops. So I made a pendulum. How funny that it's only been in that little pouch and it's become tangled. There we go. So the pendulum is made out of black obsidian, black glass, and a Balinese silver bead. And on the other side, it's black glass. But I thought this would be a fun little add-on because you can use it for scrying and for divination, and it's an actual magical item that you can keep inside your magic book. So if you're new to the idea of a pendulum, pendulums are used in a way that you access your own inner knowing. So if you're making a decision or if you're wondering whether to do one thing or another, get this or get that, if you have a yes or no question, you can hold the pendulum and try to steady it so it's not moving. And first you decide what's a yes and what's a no. So you tell your pendulum, show me a yes. And then you wait for it to start moving. So see how it's kind of going in clockwise circles? So for me, clockwise circles are a yes. And then you say, show me a no. And that just makes sure that your pendulum doesn't do the same thing for yes and for no. So for me, the no is kind of a back and forth motion. Yes, it was going in circles. No, it's kind of just going back and forth. And then you can ask your question. So my question could be, am I happy with how this fall-themed witchy journal turned out? And it's a strong yes. That's good to know. It would be a little embarrassing if the answer was no in a video about the journal. So there you go. You don't need to keep this in the book. You could take it out, use it separately, put something else in the little velvet pouch. But I felt like I wanted to share a little magical thing inside the magical book. So this collage was originally, I was going to glue this to the front cover, but I thought the cover fabric just looks so beautiful. I didn't want to cover it up. But if you get the book and you like the idea of having a picture on the cover, you could glue it on yourself. It's another Waterhouse image that's printed onto linen paper, so you get kind of a canvas painting texture to it when it picks up the light. And it shows the beautiful goddess witch called Circe standing in front of her cauldron, casting a circle, doing her magic. And it's framed with all kinds of different laces and trims and clippings from recycled saris with an old single earring. And this was actually a really cheap thrifted ring that I bent and kind of glued down. This was a button from my grandmom's vintage button collection, kind of to add some history. And then this actually opens up and you get some journaling space. So this was a printable paper from Liana scrap, and it just looked like the right witchy vibe to go with this. You might recognize that strip from the cover fabric. And then it's sitting on just a coffee dyed indigo blue piece of paper, so you can do all kinds of writing, collaging, doodling, journaling on this. If you work with gel pens, they look extra good on these super dark pages. And this was just held on with a paper clip. And the paper clip has some cool beads dangling from it. This was a pair of earrings that I took apart and used all the beads on one clip because I just love that really full. It feels more opulent, I think, when a beaded tassel is more than one strand. So on this side, I made a little pocket out of some scrapbook paper, and then I stuffed it with some cool midnight sort of witchy images that I found on the Graphics Fairy website. I just printed them out, some on paper, some on cardstock, and I inked the edges to make them look a little bit more antique. Isn't she cute with her arm around her owl? So lots of journaling space on the backs of those cards and on the blue paper. This was a page from Release the Crafton's Egyptian kit, and I just adore the black cat. So because it's Egyptian, I stuck a piece of actual papyrus paper from Egypt onto it. My grandparents brought me back 2 sheets of this rolled up in a scroll when they went to Egypt a long time ago. And when I tried to unroll the scroll, it crumbled. But I actually really like the shape and the size of the crumbled bits. So on your Egyptian page, you actually get some genuine Egyptian papyrus. That's stuck on with a paper clip and another little thrifted jewelry pieces here. An orange heart set in black metal. And another Graphics Fairy image, coffee dyed paper background. This is actually printed, but it's part of my coffee dyed printable set. So I coffee dyed a bunch of paper and then scanned it, and that way I can use it as backings for pages. And I did a little bit of stamping in this book, which I don't usually do, but I found a set of Halloween stamps out thrifting. The witch's hat felt perfect. Another Waterhouse painting. I love this little weaver sitting at her loom, leaning back to relax, stamped a spider's web. She's probably my favorite witch with her arm around her familiar. And you'll notice I've put a lot of leaves throughout the book. I really wanted the book to look like it's an explosion of fall leaves, and I think I achieved that. And I'm pretty sure all the witches used throughout, witches and fairies, are all from the Graphics Fairy website. This one really suited the theme. I almost used this as a cover image as well before I decided to just leave the fabric as it is. I love that this fairy is scattering fallen leaves. And of course you could put more stuff in that pocket too. So this is genuine vintage ledger paper from the 1960s. The stamp is my own new edition. And I just folded the bottom up to make it into a little tuck spot, added some washi tape and stickers. Okay, maybe this is my favorite little witch, hugging her kitty. This is from another another Released a Craft and Printable kit. I didn't use any single kit for this book. I kind of like to keep them eclectic and use lots of different papers. This one is from Medieval Mirage. And then this I found on a public domain illustration site. Just a really cool Day of the Dead woman. And lots of Halloween leaves. I printed this actually on mulberry paper, so this is a beautiful handmade paper with lots of crinkly texture and orange kind of ribbons and flower petals and different plant pieces inside it. And I love how this looks too. The collage of leaves with some gold trim and an embroidered piece. So yeah, you can flip these down and do some journaling underneath. And then this page has a lot of fun things. So here's some handmade paper decorated with more leaves, coffee dyed. And then here's a little snippet. This is actually leftover from the pocket on the front page. Inked the edges again to make it look old. I just pinned those on, and what it's holding in place is a sheet of music paper that you can use for collaging or journaling, or rip it up and use it for your own creative projects. And I painted it white in some places to make it easier to write over, and I added the decoupaged napkin of fall leaves. And then this woman flips down so you can do some secret journaling on the back. And this is actually a copy that I made of one of the ephemera pieces from a Victorian scrapbook that I bought on eBay. And even though she's not meant to be a Halloween-y image, I thought this would make such a cool Halloween costume. Kind of a bohemian looking woman. That back on. And then this is coffee dyed paper. This is also a coffee dyed paper that I stamped some fall leaves onto. And I love, love, love this trim. It's more peach than orange, but I kind of like that to brighten up all the darker browns and oranges. And this is also a print I made of one of the Victorian scrapbook ephemera pieces. Again, I thought this would make a great costume. She looks a little mystical. She kind of reminds me of Madame Blavatsky. Inked the edges. And I love this spread. See that beautiful owl? It's actually two separate printable pages from Release the Craftin'. And I glued them down onto these papers but left the sides open as pockets. So I put more vintage Halloween cards in here. Isn't that one fun? The little fairy riding a rat. I didn't overstuff these pockets because, as you could see, the book was already super overstuffed and I wanted to leave some room for whoever gets it to grow into it. And this page is actually from a vintage rock collecting magazine from, I think, either 1960s or 1990. I had two of them. I don't remember which one specifically it's from. But I stuck to it an image from the Graphics Fairy of a girl reading a ghost story by candlelight. And I actually had that exact same girl in my Victorian scrapbook. So I printed out this image, which is kind of a higher quality, higher resolution version of the painting. And I also copied the one that was in my scrapbook. So this is the actual size of the Victorian piece. And this is what it said on the back. So it gives you information about the artist. It's called The Ghost Story. And it is ridiculously, maddeningly sexist, because it says something in here like, if you want to prevent this scene from happening, don't let your woman read a ghost story at night. And it's kind of like, bitch. What do you mean don't let your woman? So Victorian era, not exactly, they weren't advertising to the women, they were advertising to the men. So yeah, it's advertising a stomach tonic. So it's kind of fun going through those antique scrapbooks to see that a lot of these beautiful images, like how in our era, you wouldn't use the picture of somebody reading a ghost story to advertise like Tylenol or, you know, any kind of typical medicines. So it's funny how they used pictures of things irrelevant to the product they were selling to sell products. I just find that so fascinating. But yeah, I made this separate, so if you want to glue it down somewhere, you totally can. You could turn it into a pocket or a tuck spot or give it away since you already have that image in the book. But I thought it was kind of fun for historical relevance to see what that image had been commissioned for. And then this little tag book is made from prints from that release, the Crafton Witchy set. I do use a lot of her printables. So some dot grid paper that I stamped a witch onto. I love, love, love this image. I'll put links to the printables used in the description below. I love this frog too. This is from my own coffee dyed printable set. Genuine vintage music paper. This is a piece of tracing paper that I coffee dyed to give it more texture and crinkle factor. This is some beautiful, it's not fabric and it's not paper, it's like something in between. I found it in the wrapping paper section of a thrift shop, and it was so perfect for this fall luxury theme. So this little thing tucks up and tucks down. And inside I've put a page from a Japanese book from the Edo period. It was actually a book of pilgrimage places to Kuan Yin temples. So really beautiful. I find things like that to be sacred. You can feel the energy that went into it. And to me, I should have said this at the introduction of the video, but I don't think of witchcraft as something evil. I think of it as something really beautiful, connecting to nature, connecting to your ancestors, connecting to the elements, connecting to divinity. And so I tried to fill the book with pieces from multiple different cultures and eras and traditions, where the one theme kind of linking all of them is a quest for knowledge, a quest for divinity. So this piece is actually a lithograph that was made after one of the murals in Pompeii. And I don't know what the intention was behind the piece, but it kind of looks like she's feeding like a giant mythical dragon cat. Very, very cool. And blank on the back for you to journal on. Another release, the Crafton print. Coffee dyed music paper. A beautiful fall leaf tissue paper. A coffee dyed fall tree greeting card. Some black doily. This I think was from My Porch Prints. I'd have to double check where I ordered it from, but it's like a 3D detail for the center of a book where you have the same image on a plain background and then the same one that you kind of fussy cut out of cardstock. I thought it was cool because there's a pumpkin in the center, so it fits the fall vibe. And then the dangles at the center of the signature are hand-painted wooden beads and some fun carved beads. So one is carnelian. These two are just black glass, I believe, found thrifting. I love the Chinese motifs on this one. Really cool carvings. Just sorry that it's not all fitting in the camera frame. I set up my tripod as well as I could, but I had to kind of scooch it up to show you how good does it look when it's just laying open with all the fun beads and baubles and things. I love textures, if you can't already tell. I love the look of lots of layered pages and lots of textures. So a tuck spot made from another graphics fairy image, and this is another really cool ephemera piece. You can actually see the age because it's bookworm eaten. I love the little bookworm holes. So this is a page from a vintage Japanese school ledger. So it was a kid's school page from over 100 years ago, and I love how it's folded over double, so it's rice paper that's been written on each side in brush calligraphy. I found it on a Japanese Etsy shop, and the listing said that it was actually for practicing calligraphy, brush ink calligraphy. That's the other side of that greeting card. Made a pocket out of pretty dark ribbon. Stuck a couple trick-or-treat bags into it because why not? They're fun. And another graphics fairy Halloween card. I'll try to hurry up and go through the obvious pages, the other sides to things I already explained a little more quickly. Here's a fabric flip. Another scrapbook piece. This I debated with myself whether or not to include because I personally find it extremely creepy and off-putting. And this, believe it or not, was not from anything that was meant to be scary or Halloweeny. This was in a thrift store magazine that I found about crafting. And it was meant to be like, look at these beautiful dolls. But I opened that page and thought, ooh, look at those freaky, creepy, dead-eyed dolls. So to me, they fit like a vintage fall time scary. This isn't even vintage. This was from 1987. I love that it's holding a book. But anyway, you can do with this what you will, but I thought it was kind of a fun piece to include. I decoupaged some leaves onto the other side of the dot grid paper. Another thrifted earring on a big oversized orange pin. This is just scrapbook paper that I folded into pockets. One side of the pocket, I made a little moon phase wheel on a little openable pouch. And I didn't put anything in this pouch, but before starting to film, I went through my stamp stash and found a stamp of Queen Elizabeth on a black background. And of course, black fits the Halloween theme, and I thought it would be nice to put something in here of Queen Elizabeth because she passed away while this book was being made. And I've never been a big fan of the monarchy and all that, but if you are, it's a nice way to celebrate her life. The other side has just a fun little tiny tag book with mushrooms, a fall flower, and the most adorable little root. What are they called? The word will come to me after I stop filming the video. Makes me think of Harry Potter when they were growing them. Shoot, what are they called? I'm sure somebody will leave it in the comments. More of the trick-or-treat bags. They flip up so you can journal on the backs, and you can do some collaging on the book page. The other side I left blank. And I like to clip this here because it just kind of holds everything in place. Love this. So this is a napkin that I found in a gift shop in Waterton Lake. I bought a stack of these napkins. It's an image painted by a First Nations artist from here in Canada, and the profits for the sales of all of these go to the artist. So I thought it was a nice way to support a fellow artist and also incorporate something unique in the craft. I think the painting was titled Three Sisters, and I love the Three Sisters in twilight time. The back has another cute little graphics fairy Halloween card. Coffee dyed paper making into a pocket with a really cool group 3 witches on their broomsticks. And then this was an attempted coffee dyed print that went a little weird, but I think it fits into this book perfectly. And then on the other side, I made the other piece of this napkin just into a little tuck spot where I included a bat chandelier that I printed onto tracing paper. This is a really grungy, not coffee dyed, that's actual genuinely old paper. This was one of the background papers from my Victorian scrapbook. Some really pretty paper from the Eastern Opulence pack. Purple is not really a Halloween or a fall color, but I love adding it for a little contrast. And this cool masked Halloween partier with a candle. Another graphics fairy image. This page is held on with a paper clip with another thrifted broken earring. So it is a coffee dyed envelope. It's got a really fun witch stamp and multicolor on the other side, but I kind of folded it over the page backwards because I like to use it as a pocket. So of course, lots of journaling space underneath. And I stuck into that pocket a print that I made of a page from an antique book from Japan that I bought online. I've got to stop clicking on ads because I didn't know I wanted an antique Japanese book until the ads started popping up on Instagram. But I love it because it shows one of these cool Japanese ghost figures, and it kind of looks like the person in the house is waiting and knows that a vision or an apparition is about to happen. And the person kind of looks like he or she is there for it. So I love that piece. And I printed that on handmade mulberry paper, so it feels really old and it feels really authentic. There's a Halloween napkin for you. You can do some decoupage, you can cut it up, you could actually even just use it as a napkin. Do whatever you want. I tucked it into there like another tuck spot. Did another Day of the Dead sugar skull on this side. Here's a fabric flip with a thrifted piece of scarf and some sari trim, and then some journaling space underneath. The other side of this 1960s ledger, lots of journaling space in there. I stuffed the little pockets full. So there's a print I made of the gem moldavite. Made that into a little bookmark that you can use however you want. Another cute little Halloween greeting card. This is a genuine piece from my Victorian scrapbook. It broke off the body, so there's a little very scary Halloween-y floating head. And then this is a print I made. The alchemical table of symbols. How fun is that? So it's like the table of elements or the periodic chart, but it's all magical, mystical symbols. And I inked the edges of all 3 of the folds to make it look grungy, and you can use those as journaling spots. Just gonna stick that all there so it folds up easily. We're nearing the end here. A little collage of papers, lots of journaling space. I put more of these trick-or-treat bags in here. I also put pages from a 1960s day planner, 1968. And you can glue this little side down and have some journaling space added. It's fun to leave some of the ephemera blank so whoever gets the book can choose what to do with it. This is an advertisement for Halloween candy from a Life magazine that I found at a thrift shop from 1958. So how cool is that when our parents or aunties and uncles or grandparents, or depending on how young or old we might be, back when they were out trick-or-treating, this is what they could expect. And I love how there's some pen scribbles on the corner. I'm not sure if the camera's picking them up, but it looks like a little kid actually had some fun drawing on this. And the other side of that ad is for some pink lipstick. So yeah, that was a fun extra bit of ephemera to add. This is a floating bookmark on chain. So there's a pentacle. Okay, I've got to show you the whole thing. So I thought this would make a fun sort of like an advent counter to Halloween, because if you count the black boho bead I stuck to one side and the pentacle I stuck to the other, there are exactly 31 beads. 31 beads if you count this as 1 and that as 31. So in October, say on October 1st, you can start with this one and then add that. So there's 2 days and this many left till Halloween, and then 3 and this many left till Halloween. Anyway, I found this piece out thrifting, then I added the black handmade glass bead. Oh, here comes Minu. Sweetie. She's climbing into my lap as I film, which is adorable. So yeah, that kind of sits in there as a floating bookmark, but you can also use it as a little counter for the days till Halloween. So yeah, there's a tuck spot here. I put a little cool envelope in that one. I made a tuck spot out of a moon moth, and this is genuine from my Victorian scrapbook. I thought I'll call this book The Witching Hour because this little girl's standing on a chair looking at the grandfather clock. It is midnight. And sadly, it got a little bit mucked up on the back where it was glued into that vintage, not vintage, antique from the 1870s scrapbook. But it still looks pretty cool. And then that brings us to the back. So a Beauty and the Beast picture, just because it's kind of creepy and has some fall colors, held into place with some gold lace. And then the back cover has a another beautiful embroidered velvet pocket, fall leaves, with another beautiful thrifted broken earring. I love the black beading here. I dangled a gold tree to it. And then in the pocket, I put some beautiful astrology stickers. So all the different astrology signs are there. You can use those stickers to decorate this book or use it for an astrology practice, whatever you choose. And then an envelope I made, I found this painting in an art history textbook. It's a painting of lightning. And I stuffed that little envelope with some little goodies for you. They are sticky notes, a ghost, a moon, and a pumpkin. And I lined this little envelope with some handmade paper. It has a beautiful cotton texture to it. And there you have it. That is the fall time, glamorous, kind of witchy, Halloweeny junk journal with lots and lots and lots of little extras. I hope you enjoyed this flip through. I hope fall time is a magical season for you. I'd say happy Halloween, but like I said, it's still September when I upload this video. But even still, I hope it's a magical fall time and that when the time comes, you do have a happy Halloween. And if you watched this whole video to the end and you decide to purchase this book, let me know in a comment at checkout and I will throw in this ring for you, which was one of my thrifted pieces. It has a really cool stretchy ring shank, so it'll fit pretty much any size finger. And although this isn't a stone, it's just resin, it has a beautiful amber color, and when you hold it up to the light, it's just perfectly amber. And I'll also include this little stretchy one. It's missing a stone, it's a thrifted piece, but it's cute. And I'll also include this one. I think this was the most expensive of my thrifted rings. It's beautiful blackened metal, and I'm pretty sure these are real little marcasite crystals. So yeah, mention watching the video to the end and you'll get this trio of cool witchy rings that I think would complete a fun witchy costume. So much love to you. Thank you for watching. Happy crafting. And if you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to say, please do feel free to leave them in the comment section below. That helps me out as a YouTube creator. It helps bump my videos as they appear in a YouTube search. Anyway, thank you again. Much love. Bye till next time.